genuinely a cause of concern. All right, on page 9, we have a story regarding the NLC, the National Lands Commission, and we all are probably privy to the fact that there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the compensation for land. Four petitioners tell members of parliament land agency boss and his deputy used their offices to influence decisions that hurt some parties in land options. So MPs opt out of Swazuri fraud probe as tenure of NLC ends. Their tenure is coming to an end, but of course the members of parliament opting out.
Yeah, the tenure is coming to an end, Mike, but I think the commission has done very little in addressing land issues in this country. And in any case, they have contributed to so much confusion in land, like title deeds provision and those other things. Because when this commission was established, it was expected that it's going to sweep, utilize the registrar, land registrar. But from what we are seeing is that the things are still the same. You hear of files getting lost, you hear of compensation being irregular, and so many things. And when you look at all these systems, the way the Land Commission has been operating, you realize that to some extent they have been colluding with the fraudsters and speculators, where we have brokers negotiating between the people who are supposed to be compensated and the Land Commission. You had the case, recently the case of Narok, Kajiado County. Was it in Kajiado, the SGR compensation?
Correct.
Where one person is being compensated to a tune of almost 900 million for 12 acres. So if you calculate, you realize that an acre is going for around 7 something million. And this is a huge amount of money that when you look at the value of land in that area does not really
correlate with what they're saying. All right, and well, finally, before we move on to the nation, you also have a pull-out magazine which is called Hustle, which is good in terms of knowing what the young people are doing to just get by in terms of hustling. And today, how a camera got me off the streets and rewrote my life story. Get yourself a copy of the Standard, and there's many more stories that you can look in there. But now, let's take a look at the Daily Nation. On the headline is Uhuru, only Uhuru matters to me, declares Ruto. Again, this is referring to the interview that the Deputy President did on BBC Hard Talk with Stephen Saka. And this was in relation, what they've taken it out of is the question on to whether what the Deputy President feels with Murathe coming out to say that he is not fit to be president of this country. But for him, he says it's only the president's word that matters.
The issue of Ruto ascending to the position of presidency come 2022 has been shrouded with a lot of, speculations and everybody giving his or her own opinion. But legally speaking, Ruto has all the is protected under the law to vie for presidency. Nobody can prevent him from vying. Even you and me, Mike, we can also, develop interest and declare our interest to vie for this position. So stopping Ruto does not really make sense because Ruto has not stopped anybody from declaring their presidential, ambitions. So if you say, I'm going to stop you, what is the option? Let people come out and sell their ideologies, sell their ideas, tell Kenyans, this is what I'm going to do to you, that the Jubilee government under the presidency of Uhuru and Ruto has not provided. But if everybody is now talking about stopping Ruto, in fact, they are making him more popular than their own candidates. Because now in fact, I was looking at statistics and I was informed that Ruto is now the highly talked about politician in Kenya, rating at over 65%. Wow. You can imagine everybody now is talking about Ruto. Whether stopping this, stopping Ruto, and he's catching headlines. Newsrooms are also interested in this man called Ruto.
And you know what they say in regards to politics, there's no bad publicity.
There's no bad publicity.
He seems to be getting a lot of traction. But one of the questions that he was asked, and this might be interesting for you to get this particular article, which is run in the Standard and the Nation, is the question of whether the president trusts asked him, and this is, of course, in regards or alluding to the appointment of Dr. Matiang'i as the Chief Minister to oversee government projects. And the Deputy President, of course, saying that those are sideline stories. The President and I agree on how we are going to make government much more efficient and deliver. Do you think that was a genuine comment, that this particular area they had agreed with the President?
I think the issue of Matiang'i's appointment was taken out of context. And you know, it was it got a lot of excitement, especially for those who hate or who have aspersions against Deputy President. But the ministry that Matiang'i holds, generally, it's Ministry of Interior and National Coordination. So the coordination of national activities squarely lies under in his office. So I think the presidency, both Uhuru and Ruto, just wanted the efficiency, the way Deputy President is talking about. But you know, we have had these cases that people are talking about now Matiang'i being, you know, like a prime minister. Ruto has been rendered irrelevant. And constitutionally speaking, no role of Deputy President has been taken away by Matiang'i. Ruto still holds his office. He still plays his role of representing the president and also supervising other projects.
Actually, according to this article, if it's anything to go by, the Deputy President says that Matiang'i reports to him.
Yeah, he reports to the presidency. And something Kenyans are forgetting, Mike, is that when the Jubilee government or the Jubilee party was campaigning, they had a manifesto which they promised Kenyans that this is what we are going to achieve in the next 5 years. And they need these things to be achieved. Matiang'i did not campaign. It was Uhuru and Ruto. So if the government fails to perform, Matiang'i will not be held accountable. Kenyans will ask Ruto or Uhuru, this is what you promised us. Now, President has come out with this 4-point agenda. To me, the 4-point agenda might just end up to be a big zero agenda, because there's no proper framework on how these 4 agendas are going to be achieved within the next 3 years. We are talking about industrialization. We are talking about housing. Nothing has started. People are losing jobs. Companies, industries are closing up. We are talking about
universal healthcare.
Food security. Food security, look around, there's fertilizer is not going to be subsidized. Farmers are crying of not having been paid. You know, there's no incentives for people to engage in farming. Now look at the other issue of universal health care. It was launched in Kisumu, and the same Kisumu now, nurses are striking. There is no provision of healthcare services. So I think as much as we might want to support the president and his proclamation on some of these important issues, but it's also important that the president is advised on achievable goals, things that can be realized within a short period. And from what I'm seeing, because nothing of the big 4 agenda has kicked off, so in 3 years,
we may still be where we are right now.
Kenyans should not expect much.
And, well, of course, the presidency will be held accountable. And Jubilee Party, as the party in government, they'll be held accountable with what they did with their term of 5 years. But that, of course, remains to the jury out there. Page 6, we're shopping for a systems expert. That's according to IEBC chair. Yesterday was the day where they were giving a report on some of the findings regarding the 2017 election, which is an important part of this country's history, because we know we have a very bad history of elections that end up being marred, with some feeling that they were not done fairly. But the IEBC coming out to say that one of the things that they're planning to do is to get an external consultant to audit the service to find out what happened during the sending of 2017 elections results. Could this also be somewhat an admission that something did go wrong?
Yeah, to some extent.
So far they have stood and said nothing went wrong.
To some extent, you can't just say that the elections were very free, fair and credible, having been successfully challenged in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found that there were some faults, there were some discrepancies in terms of releasing of the results. So I feel the ABC is owning up and saying something went wrong and they need an audit, but it's late. I think what Kenyans should be demanding now, leave alone the issue of referendum and, BBI and all other things. I think the focus now and energy should be on revamping the IBC. We are all aware that the commission as it stands now is not properly formulated. And in addition to that, most of these commissioners, the 3 commissioners, might not be in the office by 2022 when we shall be holding another elections. So the focus and energy now should be how do you restructure this IBC? And restructuring should start with the overhauling the whole electoral system from the administration, from the secretariat. Because you appoint commissioners, they come into office, the secretariat is still the same people, the people who understand the system, the way it operates, the way they manipulate. The commissioners don't manipulate some of these things. It's from the secretariat. And if we are just doing the commissioners, replacing commissioners, and not looking at the secretariat, then we are just, doing
zero work.
Zero work. So I feel that the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga and Uhuru, should work towards revamping and restructuring IBC. And from their statement yesterday, they alluded to the fact that Kenyan election is very expensive. An election that takes almost 67 billion is not a joke. Because when you put now, if you calculate by, let's say, 15 million voters, you realize that every voter is spending a lot of money just to engage in this electoral process.
Yeah, of course, one of the things that they were asked to do or requested to do or recommended to do is to make sure that they reduce the cost of elections. Kenyans' elections being one of the most expensive in the world, which of course is a matter of concern. Again, probably speaking to the pilferage that goes on, because really does all that money go towards the election, or does it
some of this money, sadly, Mike, some of this money we are talking about, at least half of it ends up in people's pocket because they exaggerate the quotation, the suppliers, and most of these suppliers work in collude with the commissioners and the secretariat. So it's, I know we have even had reports of Chebukati's firm, his former law firm, being given services to provide at the for IBC, which is actually total
conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Because how do we expect now that commission, that IBC being Chebukati being the chair, then his law firm is providing services, they will approve an amount that this firm quotes. So there's a lot of, we lose a lot of money through corruption, and also there's I think there are no strict measures on procurement, because if there were, we should be expecting people now in court of floating the procurement regulations and laws. But people are just walking freely outside here. People are expecting that Kenyans will forget about it. Then they move on. Then the next election, we have a repeat. People make billions and run away.
And talking about procurement and laws in terms of procurement and losing millions in terms of graft, page 10, trial of over 35 NYS scandal begins, and they are accused of conspiring to defraud the National Youth Service of 167.5 million. Of course, this would be a case that many Kenyans will be interested in seeing how it pans out, given the amount of public interest it has drawn so far.
There's high public interest, but at the same time, we expect that the process will be smooth. The process will run speedily to have those people who were found to have engaged in enemy appropriation of public funds prosecuted and convicted. And at the same time, we also need to give the suspects, at least some, they have already been judged by the public court that they are already, guilty. But we must understand that we leave the law to take its course. And I hope that the right people will be convicted or those who are innocent
will be set free.
Let them
and
be
of
set
course,
free.
we also know that and hope that the ODPP will have done their job, because one of the areas that has
That's
been
the problem.
of concern is whether they have done their investigations properly and they have credible evidence that can bring those who may be found culpable and guilty to book. But that remains.
But again, Mike, some of these people who are normally taken to court, some of those people have heard stories outside there that they're just taken to cover up on the main beneficiaries of this corrupt
cleansing exercise.
Yeah, if the office of the prosecution, director of prosecution, can go deep and investigate who are the people benefiting from this corrupt money, because some of those, like the greeters, they were just told bring some receipts, things like that. Then they bring bank account, then the money is siphoned to their account.
They may have others inside.
Yeah, so we have people who play a major role in ensuring that as the money goes to this account, it comes back to them. And you might find that those people who are taken to court, actually they're the smallest fish. They are the bottom of the pyramid. And, you know, of course, they need also to be served justice, but we need to go for the big fish.
All right, and that's where we're going to wind up our newspaper review this morning. Thank you for joining us, Bernard Wakoli, to go through what's making headlines on the dailies.